Movie recap zones here. Today, I will make sense of a sci-fi film called The Mandela Effect. Spoilers ahead. Look out and fare thee well. That day, a game creator named Brendan, his significant other, Claire and their girl named Sam, are on excursion to an ocean side. Them three partake in being together, loaded with bliss, jokes, and chuckling. While they are unwinding, Sam means to search for snails around the ocean side, and she vows not to play in the water. Claire settles on the condition that Sam doesn't go excessively far from their sight. Whenever Sam is caught up with searching for snails, she doesn't understand that the waves drag her inquisitive George. Sam attempts to take the doll, however tragically, she is hauled along by the waves. Sam's demise causes Brendan and Claire to feel exceptionally miserable. Claire attempts to continue on, yet Brendan, who adores his little girl especially, couldn't simply release her. While they are pressing Sam's things, Brendan incidentally sees a book named The Berenstain Bear. He feels odd on the grounds that he obviously recollects that the book was recently named The Berenstain Bear with an E, rather than A. When they are dozing, unexpectedly an unusual sound comes from the kitchen. What's more, it ends up being Matt, his brother by marriage, who comes to search for food in the fridge. Brendan then gives him some pizza, and he likewise gets some information about the book The Berenstain Bear. Matt answers that the book is named The Berenstain Bear, with the letter E. However, Brendan shows Matt that the right composing is The Berenstain Bear with the letter A, wondering for no specific reason. Brendan attempts to track down it on the web. Furthermore, it just so happens, there are many individuals who feel that the writing in the book is The Berenstain Bear, with an E. Brendan keeps on searching for data about it until he at last observes a hypothesis that makes sense of the episode, in particular the Mandela impact hypothesis. The following day, Brendan is befuddled by the photograph of his family on the fridge. He asks his better half where the photograph was taken, and Claire answers that it was taken before the Griffith Observatory, yet Brendan is extremely certain that they didn't assume photographs there. All things considered, they took pictures at the Pacific Science Community in Seattle. His significant other doesn't answer and advises him to leave since she is occupied with cooking. Brendan then goes to see Matt and discusses the Mandela impact hypothesis. Brendan feels that he is encountering the Mandela impact peculiarity. However, Matt denies and says that the peculiarity is simply bogus memory. Be that as it may, Brendan actually puts stock in his hypothesis and accepts that he currently lives in an equal universe. Brendan keeps on investigating these hypotheses, and afterward he sees on the gathering that the Mandela impact is brought about by an analysis with a huge hadron collider made by CERN. The investigation is led in 2008 in Russia, and simultaneously, many individuals experienced abnormal peculiarities, one of which is the Mandela impact. Brendan then attempts to go to a minister named Isaac, to learn about the presence of God. However, in the wake of paying attention to Isaac's words, Brendan doesn't completely accept that God has made this world. Seeing Brendan's peculiar way of behaving, Claire makes an effort not to stay with past recollections with Sam. She believes Brendan should fail to remember the past and carry on with another life. He then gets some information about the image of the person in the restraining infrastructure. Claire solidly trusts that the person's picture in imposing business model is wearing a monocle on one side of his eye. At the point when she checks it, it just so happens, the person's picture isn't utilizing a monocle. Besides, Brendan additionally calls attention to that the monkey character inquisitive George doesn't really have a tail. Yet, the curious George doll that Sam had has a tail. Brendan attempts to make sense of that these connect with the hypothesis of the Mandela impact. Brendan feels that Sam's passing around then is simply one more equal universe form that enters the current world and afterward moves the real occasions. However, Claire is furious and disheartened with Brendan, who just thinks often about himself with unusual speculations, making them incapable to continue on. All things being equal, Brendan stays persuaded that the Mandela impact exists. Brendan then, at that point, concentrates on the hypothesis more profound. He finds that the Mandela impact could happen because of other equal universes being blended into the world he is right now living in. Equal universes themselves are various, and each equal universe contains another adaptation of this biography. He feels doubtlessly Sam is as yet invigorated in another equal universe. Eventually, he observes the name of a researcher named Roland Fuchs, who additionally trusts that this world is only a reenactment. Brendan then, at that point, attempts to see specialist Roland, yet he is excessively occupied at that point. The following day, Brendan attempts to see him once more. There both of them have a talk about Roland's research. The specialist makes sense of that his exploration shows that the universe is a programmatic experience intended for an obscure reason. The reproduction then, at that point, makes new recreations with an alternate adaptation of the story consistently. The Mandela impact experienced by Brendan is a type of bug, or then again a blend between the present reenactment and different reproductions, that causes life to turn out badly. From Roland's clarification, Brendan additionally presumes that assuming a program shapes this world, he could change the program by utilizing script coding, so the world runs appropriately with no bugs. In any case, it appears as though he can't do that, assuming he just purposes a normal PC. Specialist Roland additionally concurs that they can't change the world with simply a normal PC with extremely low details. Roland then, at that point, shows Brendan that he and his group have made the primary quantum PC put away in one college. Specialist Roland then makes sense of that there's plausible that Brendan's program could be run utilizing the quantum PC. Brendan then, at that point, chooses to search for books on quantum PC programming and begin coding scripts in light of them. He additionally joins some of his game programming code with quantum code, so he figures out how to make another content. The following day, Brendan is astounded by the presence of Sam, who is now at their home. From the get-go, he feels that it is only his creative mind. However, eventually, he accepts that he is the person who brings Sam back from the equal world, with nothing to do. Brendan then exploits it by messing around with his little girl. Brendan is blissful on the grounds that he figures out how to move the narrative of Sam's passing with another equal rendition. In any case, around then, Brendan starts to feel abnormal about Claire's way of behaving. He understands that in the equal rendition he sees now, Sam is as yet alive. However, Claire turns into an exceptionally pushed lady. Abruptly, Brendan goes directly to Dr. Roland, yet, he is stunned when he hears the news that Roland ended it all 2 months prior. He feels that the content he entered caused an uncommon Mandela impact. Understanding a bug in the content, Brendan promptly chooses to make a coding content to run the order to reinstall the universe. The re-establishment expects to make the universe runs typically without any bugs like the Mandela impact. Brendan questions the content. He is concerned that the universe would be annihilated and couldn't be remade. However, for his little girl and spouse, Brendan chooses to go to the office where the quantum PC is and afterward begin entering his coding script. Brendan figures out how to run his content, and the quantum PC then, at that point, gives indications of response. Brendan quickly surges away, however he sees every one of the vehicles in the IT are missing to leave part. On the transport, he sees that everybody is beginning to mess up. He sees the structures likewise misfire. Brendan then, at that point, goes to see his family, and he sees what is going on has turned out badly. He sees his significant other misfires, and the structure turns dull. Eventually, he sees 2 moons impacting. Lastly, the entire universe vanishes into the murkiness. After a second, Brendan's content out of nowhere runs once more, and the world started to restructure. Planets, microorganisms, infections, ocean creatures, people. Furthermore, whole urban communities are currently back to typical with no different errors, including the Mandela effect. Then the scene returns when Brendan, Claire, and furthermore Sam is at the ocean side. At the point when Sam goes looking for snails, Brendan calls Sam and advises her to leave the curious George doll, which resembles it doesn't have a tail any longer. At long last, as Sam goes searching for snails, Brendan watches out for his little girl. Also, the film closes. Buy in for additional recordings like this, turn on warnings, and pass on a like to take care of the channel. Much obliged to you for watching.